born in a small town and I live in a small town.
When NASCAR came to us several years ago about doing some testing with the different blends, we took and we run E15 all the way up to E30, and the performance we seen was there. Everybody, the biggest thing that really upsets me a lot is the myths about ethanol, food versus fuel. There's so many misled people in this country that do not understand the importance that we all have in producing our own energy. And it's ethanol, corn ethanol is one of the greatest things that's happened in this country. Now we've ran over 5 million miles with ethanol, E15, the blend that was chosen. And so there's nothing that can harm your engine if it's done right. And we build these engines to up to 850 plus horsepower. And if they can stand E15, your street cars can stand it. We're proud to run E15 in our race cars. Couldn't be more prouder to represent it. And I believe in what's good for America. I just think that if we all don't stand up as Americans and let people know how important this is, it may be, it touches up areas that you don't realize. Yeah, you've got the farmer, the producer of seed, fertilize. You got all these people that produce the equipment, the tractors we all use. But then it goes even further than that. It goes to your local restaurants. It goes to your local families. How it affects the economy and what it'll do to our country in the future. We cannot stand to depend on foreign oils like we have for many years.
I've never heard a lie bigger than the food versus fuel. It's not based on facts, it's based on perception. And the more misinformation you get out there, the more people believe it. And that's why your involvement is so critical to weighing in. We all believe and we all know that if this debate is based on facts, we win and we move forward. But we have our critics, and we have to work it constantly. We engage in advocacy, both on Capitol Hill and state capitals. We engage with the regulators at EPA. We engage with the media, both on the free media side and the pay media side. And unfortunately, we have to engage in the legal process. We are 21% at a minimum less greenhouse gas emissions than gasoline. If you throw out some phony charge they put on us called indirect international land use change, as if we're directing what happens around the world, if you throw that out, we're about 60% less greenhouse gas emissions. And so anytime you hear anybody talk about environmental benefits, stop and think. We are the most successful program to clean our nation's air in the history of our government. In the history of our government. There is no other product or change in energy or fuel that's had the results that we've had. And if you believe in renewable fuels and ethanol and all the benefits that it accrues to communities like Burlington and others across the country, and to our environment, to our national security, to farm income, get involved. Seriously, take 2 minutes, sign a letter, send a petition, or sign a petition, send a letter, make a phone call to your politicians, your elected public officials, to the White House, to EPA, and express your opinion. Because I guarantee you, for whatever you're for, there's somebody in Washington that's against what you want to do. If everyone in this room will promise to go home and send an email, Send a postcard, send a letter, or make a phone call let's shoot for the White House this time, because most of the battle has been shifted to the administration on the new volumes. And tell them how important the renewable fuel standard is to your livelihood, to your community's livelihood.
Agriculture has become more sustainable, which is exciting. I think it's fantastic. Not just sustainable for U.S. farmers, but sustainable for worldwide farmers. So as we were subsidizing corn in the U.S., a lot of farmers around the world couldn't afford to plant decent seed. They couldn't afford to fertilize. All they grew was enough for their own family because there was no profit in it. Because we were sending our grain around the world at a subsidized price, below the cost of production. And so what's great about what's happened isn't just great for America, it's great for worldwide agriculture. And most developing countries are 70 to 80% farmers. So think about how this has changed the world. We replaced 10% of the gasoline supply. We use up a significant part of the U.S. corn crop. But more importantly, we stabilized commodity prices and we stabilized rural America. We stabilized rural America and we made it so that the government doesn't have to subsidize farmers anymore. The U.S. government subsidized farmers for just about 50 years. So you were paying for part of your grocery bill at the grocery store, and you were paying for part of your grocery bill in your taxes. I don't think that hardly anyone in America realizes that. But for the last 5 years, that's not the case. For the last 5 years, actually, farming has been profitable, and the government hasn't had to subsidize. We're sitting on a 13.9 billion bushel corn crop we just harvested, largest in history. One more crop like that, what's price corn going to be? It's going to be back below the cost of production. And what are we going to have to go back to as taxpayers? Paying for part of our grocery bill and our tax bill. And I don't think we want to do that. I don't think that's smart when we can take that commodity, turn it into ethanol at a reasonable price. At $5 corn, which is a sustainable price, we can compete at $50 a barrel against oil. The more ethanol we make, the more oil is going to have to come down to meet that price. Absent a competitor, if the oil company is successful in holding us back, what's going to happen to the price of oil? What's going to happen to the price of oil? It's going to go from, 100 to where? 125, 150, 200, 250? I don't know where it's going to go in our lifetime or in our children's lifetime. So we're kind of at a crossroads here. Are we going to allow a competitor to come in and lower the price of oil, or are we going to block that competitor out of the market, watch agriculture get into difficulty, and see the opposite? I think in the future, we need to look at this in a different way. In the future, farmers are going to produce food and energy. They've been doing it for the last 20 years, whether they realize it or not, but this is a food and energy game, not just a food game. It's a food and energy game, and mostly feed for animals as well. But it's going to be both. In fact, ethanol is the only way we're going to get eventually to cheaper fuel and cheaper food. The more ethanol we make, the more food we make. The more food that goes on the market, more protein oil micronutrients, the cheaper that gets as well. So ethanol, I would argue, is one of the only gateways to cheaper fuel and cheaper food. So I think the most important message today is farmers need to get involved. Ag industry needs to get involved. We all need to get involved because there's someone out there trying to hold middle America back. And we need to band together and fight, because this is a war. It's a war for the future fuel supply of the world. Is it going to be a mix of biofuels and fossil fuels, or is it going to be just fossil fuels? As we look at this, let's not just think about ourselves, because we're not the last generation that's going to live on this planet. As we think about this, let's think about using our agricultural resources of the planet to lower prices of fuel and lower prices of food, so our children and grandchildren can have a better future. That's what motivates me, and I hope that's what motivates you as well.
This is about America as a whole, and it's especially about this part of America. You all are the breadbasket of the world. If it weren't for this part of America, the whole world's economy would be different. We'd be arguing about food independence in America. People would be cursed with rising food costs, and they wouldn't have a chance in this country. Instead, we just take it for granted. And now, over the last 40 years, we've tried to do something about the fuel supply, and we're up against the largest, meanest, toughest, strongest, most politically powerful industry in human history. Do you know what the greatest source of wealth, greatest store of wealth in the world is today? It's not the U.S. stock market. It's not the Federal Reserve. It's oil reserves. They're worth over $130 trillion. Oil dictates to nations. When Chevron goes in to Tanzania, they say to the Minister of Energy in Tanzania, now sit up and listen, because I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. And when the Prime Minister of Romania deals with Chevron, he asks, when do you think you can do something for my country? And the fourth level guy at Chevron says, I don't know. It's not in the plan right now. Just wait, Prime Minister. We'll tell you. It's that kind of a relationship. It's an ugly, ugly thing. And what it's done for America, we started it. These were American companies. Now, they're not really American companies now because mostly they don't pay most of their taxes. They keep most of their profits overseas. They do most of their development overseas, or a lot of it. But you're thinking, why exactly are we fighting there? Why are we fighting there? Because somehow we had formed this alliance with Saudi Arabia, and when the Shah of Iran fell, we realized that we might have to go protect Saudi Arabia so we could buy oil from Saudi Arabia. Now think about this. This is the greatest bargain in history. The Saudis produce the oil at less than $5 a barrel. They sell it to us at a world market price of, right now, it's over $100 a barrel. Now, we pay them with dollars, which they then use to buy our real estate, our hotels, our businesses, and our company stocks. And we then create an armed forces to go guard them so they can sell us that oil safely. If we can reduce the amount of gasoline in our liquid fuel, we can reduce the amount of oil we import in the United States of America. And if we can reduce the amount of oil we import, we can take pressure off the world price of oil so we can help reduce the price of oil. We can also reduce our military commitments abroad. We're against the biggest industry in the world. And now they've got us in their sights. Now what they can't beat is they can't beat the American public, because they depend on the American public. You've got to talk. I mean really talk to this White House. This is the time to really make an impression. They want to hear from you. They do. They want to hear from you. We will win this round of the game. We must keep this renewable fuel standard intact. It's a matter of national security, not just economic security for America, national security. It's about your children and grandchildren and their futures. We do not want any more conflict that we have to participate in the Middle East. Without strong pressure from Iowa, and especially from Iowa, on this White House, we won't get what we need. So we're in the game. It's jump ball time. This is where the real players reach down and pull it together, and we pull together. You've got a first-class team of leadership here. Let's win this game, and let's win this for the United States of America.
All my friends are small town.